I robbed a dead man, but I did it for love. Back in 2011 my grandfather moved in with my parents. And during that time I got to know him very well. He would often tell me about his life. From his first memory to his first love, his first fight, the loss of his parents, his marriage to my grandmother and everything in between. The rest of my family has never gotten more than a few words out of him as he was a very quiet man, but with me he was open, especially in his last few years. One night he caught me getting high on weed, and he decided to join me. He got really comfortable, really high, and shared with me how his first real love was a boy named Jamal who he met at his job. He and Jamal were the youngest guys, both 15, at the factory and came from neighboring villages. They bonded over that. Then one evening they decided that what they felt was more than a friendship, and before they knew it they were secretly together for 11 years. For their 11th anniversary my grandfather had bought Jamal a Cartier watch that took him 7 years to save for. But a couple of days before their anniversary Jamal's father caught them kissing. Jamal's father beat them brutally, he nearly killed my grandfather, he also forbade them from ever seeing each other and they never did. They stayed away from each other out of shame, the fear of being rejected by their families, community, and at the threat of death. A few months later my grandfather got the opportunity to move to London. He took that opportunity out of fear as Jamal's father had made life in his village difficult. He got my grandfather fired from his job and made life unbearable as my grandfather had no parents to protect him. He lost them when he was 17. He also never got to say goodbye or give him the watch, and he never got Jamal's gift. A few years later my grandfather met my grandmother, a young woman studying at university, and she happened to be from his country, and they fell in love, married, had children and built a good life. As the years went by, his health declined and his mind slowly went, yet he never forgot Jamal, and as soon as he saw me would ask me to come chat with him in private and talk about Jamal. He would tell me how Jamal was so pretty, fun, interesting, brave, kind and strong. How they would lay under the stars and talk all night. How when they made love it felt like they melted into one another and they no longer could tell where one began and the other ended. How they would sneak out at the dead of night just to steal a 10-second kiss. Sometimes he would forget himself and get explicit, but I'm glad he got to have great sex with Jamal. He would often bring out the watch and ask me if it would have been a gift. My grandfather died back in 2017 and he never got to see Jamal again or give him the watch. My father intended to bury his father/my grandfather in his home country/village right next to my grandmother, and we all flew back home. I immediately looked Jamal up and I found him. It was surprisingly easy to find Jamal. He still lived in his village. When I met him I told him everything about my grandfather, his life, his marriage, children/grandkids and great-grandkids, his job, his friends, his travels etc., and at first he was reluctant and acted uninterested, but he was. I told him how he spoke of him often and how it also still hurt him to be without him. Somehow someway the fear, the shame all just fell away and Jamal decided to tell me his side of the story. Jamal lived a good life, he fell in love, married, and in his old age he was loved and well cared for by his children. He still loved my grandfather and never forgot him. He also never got to give him his gift, which also was a watch. We got to laugh a lot at the lack of their inventiveness at gift giving, but his was engraved "Always My Love" and he felt that. That made him a far better gift giver than my grandfather, who did not engrave his gift. On the day of my grandfather's funeral I stole the watch from his wrist, swapped it with Jamal's watch for him. So they still got to exchange gifts in a way. Jamal died on Monday and he will be buried tomorrow with my grandfather's watch on his wrist. I think my grandfather would have been proud of his little princess.